Well, hello everyone, and welcome. Welcome to the Florida Restaurant Lodging Show. It's exciting for me. This is now, I believe, 22 years in a row that I've been involved with the show, and I want to thank Clarion Events for putting it on virtually and doing it safe. And to me, the show has always been about solutions, right? I'm a restaurant owner and running a company that we exhibit there. And every single time I go to the show, I think, what problems do I have and where can I find some solutions? So thanks for attending. And we got a great session here for you today, and it's called Focus on Customer Service Like Your Business Depends on It, because I truly feel that it does. So we've got a lot to cover. I'm going to whip through this really quick. And my name is Darren Denington from Service with Style, Secret Shopping and Consulting. I founded the business 23 years ago, and we work with a lot of restaurants across the country, whether it's coaching and training or secret shopping. Now, for me, when the pandemic started, I was actually at another Clarion event, which was the New York show in early March, March 7, 8, 9, I believe it was. And I remember standing with the Clarion group, which is a wonderful group of people putting this show on. And we said, we'll see you in California in August, and let's hope that the word virus is completely out of our vocabulary. Well, obviously that didn't take place. So coming back from New York in early to mid-March was a scary time. New York was the epicenter, just starting off. And flying back on the plane, I kind of started to rethink what we needed to do myself. And being in New York, I thought I'd be safe, so I quarantined for a few weeks and kind of hid in my house and stayed away from the office, stayed away from the restaurant. I went into planning mode. And for me, I took over my garage, right? And big poster boards, the Post-its. And I just started writing and planning and thinking and how this was going to change. The first part of it was, what am I going to do this week, right? How are we going to get through this? And naturally to me came, well, we've got a few issues on the table and maybe we can use this to solve them. And I think that that's what the positive that has come out of this so far is that we were forced to make a lot of harsh decisions, whether it was on vendors or employees or why the heck are we still open for breakfast? So we made a lot of smart decisions really quick. And that was kind of the 3-month planning. Well, then I wanted to think what the future vision was, right? What is going to change based on the pandemic that we are going through? What is going to change moving forward? Well, that's where I guess I was a little naive, thinking that we were going to get past this a lot quicker. So we're not through it. We still have a long ways to go. And I have started looking at everything as next year. So when I sat down and did budgeting and planning and forecasting, I was thinking short term. But now it's going to be much longer. So any planning that you're doing, whether it's budgets or staff planning, organization charts, realize that until we get back to a new normal, it's going to be a while, and that has to be a thought process of yours today so that you're making good decisions to move forward and strengthen your business for a long term to come. What we're going to talk about today is the guest perspective, right? Service with Style. We deliver the guest perspective. We've been doing a ton of surveying and questionnaires and secret shopping, trying to understand what the customer is really thinking about today. And I can tell you absolutely positively, it is changing. It is drastically changing, and you need to be aware of this if you're going to build the business for the long term. We want to talk a little bit about opportunities today, what you can do today to kickstart these things, and talk about some service standards, again, from the guest perspective, what I want and what's changing for me. It all boils down to today's presentation of 10 steps to great service. So I've got a 10-step, easy to follow system, and we'll even give you a manual at the end that helps guide you through the whole thing. And that's how you're going to implement a service plan. So at the beginning of the pandemic, I thought we were in 3 different areas, right? We instantly went into sanitation. Every restaurant in the country learned about the virus really quickly, and we went to gloves and sanitizers and deep cleanings and no-touch payments. So we really quickly adapted, and that we did, I think, as an industry, fantastic. Well, then, because sales were much lower, we had to go into survival mode, and a lot of places have been pivoting, whether they added on family meals. A lot of places went to a market short term. They're adding delivery and curbside and third parties. So we're adapting and pivoting to figure out where we can get through this. And then the planning stage for me was the comeback, right? How do we come back stronger? And one of my first webinars through this was 7 steps to your comeback. I wanted every restaurant to think about how you can rebound and become stronger. Well, all 3 of these are still in play because this is lasting so long. You still have to focus on the sanitation every single day, whether there's fatigue with your staff or you think that you're over it. You have to focus on that because you're trying to share with your customers that you are still taking this serious. The survival mode, we're seeing restaurants all over the board. No word of lie, yesterday at a coaching call with 2 different restaurants, one is thinking about reopening and one is thinking about closing, and they're 11 miles apart. So we're still fighting for sales. We're still trying to keep the doors open. I know that some restaurants have found a successful model, absolutely. But we're also figuring out how we come back stronger. So all 3 of these areas have to be your regular daily thoughts. You can't look past any one area. In March at the New York show, I rolled out a new presentation that was called Total Team Makeover. And that was based on a lot of research and a lot of studies from early this year, January, February, of what I felt the industry truly needed. I felt that a total team makeover was the criteria that was really going to build the industry for a better future. Well, I looked at it as building blocks. And building blocks said that if I had the right 3 in place first, then every other thing was easy to do. The leadership, the systems, and the staff had to be that foundation. And then we look at every other piece as projects. Well, to me, one of those projects is service, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. Now, a lot of these projects, whether it's financials or marketing or a training program, those are pretty big projects, right? If you want to implement a really good, solid training program, you've got months and months of work to do. But if you want to implement a really great service program, that's one that you can implement fairly well, put in some systems to hold your team accountable, and you just keep checking back. So instead of the building blocks right now, they kind of changed to stages, right? The stage 1 was all about, are we allowed to open and what are the restrictions, and are we closing? Will the governor even let us sell alcohol? And as of last Monday in Florida, well, bars can now open. So there's restrictions that are still impeding how we can run our business. So then you look at the restrictions that have been put in place and the ones that are going to continue. And what I mean is social distancing, and I would assume masks and gloves and sanitizer, that's here for a while now. So there's going to be things that we thought were short term that are going to be continuing to stay around. The business growth, right? Where do you add a little bit of revenue? And maybe it's some contract catering or it's third-party delivery. So we're looking at these different things to add in to add a little bit of revenue. Well, then you look at the future of food service. And a few months ago, we thought maybe everything was going to be getting delivered to us because restaurants couldn't reopen. There's a lot of different avenues now on how we like to receive our food. And I challenge you as a restaurant owner and manager to understand what your guests are thinking and see what type of future they want. It's all about understanding the guest perspective. And here's why I talk so passionately about the guests right now. I understand that you have a lot going on, right? It's really, really difficult to run a restaurant right now. And there's so many variables that you're focused on. Well, service, you may kick the can. That's not that big a deal today, where we got so many other priorities. But I want you to consider this. Think about the guest or think about yourself when you walk into another business. Well, there's 2 things that are really shaping our decision making. And number 1, it's the virus, and number 2, it's the economy. Well, with the virus, what they need to see is that you've taken it serious. You need to show that they can trust you and that you have created a safe environment. And that has to be over and over and over again. So you build the trust of your customers that are actually coming out right now, so that when they choose a place right now, they're absolutely coming back to you. So we're not looking for a lot of options right now. It's just great to be able to go out somewhere. And if you're that trusted restaurant that is handling the virus correctly, then I will come back to you. The second piece is the economy. So think back 10 years ago when the housing market crashed and restaurants were one of the first ones that really suffered because our disposable income was much less. And we had to make decisions, right? Cook at home or go out. And the economy told us that we need to cut some expenses. Well, we're still dealing with the virus today, but the economy obviously is there, and that's what's going to take a while to come over. And what I personally learned back in 2009, 10, and 11 was that the guests were looking for value. If they were to come out and spend their $65, they wanted to make sure that it was a really good experience. So you've got your trust and your value. That's what you're trying to build right now. And if you build those two right now, that's how you build for the future. So that is going to help you get by today, but it's really going to launch you to a stronger business. I look at it as a secret shopping report. So I want everybody watching today to think about the last restaurant you walked into, and whether it was this morning for breakfast at a Denny's or if it was 6 months ago. The last restaurant you walked into, and put a score on it, right? And what I mean is by every single part of that experience, I want you to give a score from 1 to 100. Well, what we see is that score represents what the customer does next. So the 90% and above, and this is your sweet spot, this is what you have to be targeting if you're taking service serious. The 90% and above says that you did a fantastic job. A fantastic job says that I'm going to talk about you a little bit, and I'm going to increase my frequency a tiny bit. But the key here is if you share with me 3 experiences in a row, a 90% and above, now I trust you. So that's what we're ultimately going for. And then the 75 to 89%, you met my expectations. Everything was fine. If I was dining with you once a month, you're going to see me next month and the month after. The 60 to 74%, you were not on your A game today. But I'm not ready to kick you to the curb yet. But what I do is I start to find somebody else to regularly visit, and I come back to you usually for one of a few reasons. It's a special dish that I love. You've got a great price value, so I can get in and out very cheap, or you're in a good location. But typically why I do not come back is because of your people. That's usually the difference in this middle area. The 50 to 59%, this one's easy. I'm not coming back. I'm not going to call over a manager. I'm going to sign my guest check. I'm going to leave, and I'm never going to think about you again. Now, the last stage is the below the 50%, right? What happens here is you gave me a story. You gave me something to talk about. 9 out of 10 unhappy guests don't complain to management, but however, they tell an average of 9 friends about their crappy experience because you gave me a story. Now, obviously, when you throw social media into that, it explodes. It goes from the 9 people that I verbally tell to the 797 friends that read my post. But ultimately, there's one reason why the guests do not come back. Sure, some of them are going to move away and some don't like your product. But to me, the only number on this screen that means anything is 68% of the people that say they will never be back in your restaurant do so because they receive an attitude of indifference from one of your employees. That's what we want to correct. Now, things are absolutely changing in the market. We've, again, been doing a lot of surveying, trying to understand what the guests are thinking and feeling right now. Well, we found out that 78% of Americans feel that they need to see precautions in place to make them feel safe. So if you have the precautions, they feel like you're taking it serious and they start to trust you. 68% of the people we surveyed said that they wouldn't go anywhere near a restaurant without these new precautions. And 53% of people are telling us that they're downloading more apps so that they can go less contact with people. So these are things that are now starting to be embedded in how we act and how we think and how we use businesses. So you have to understand what the guest is thinking, which leads you into possibly looking at your model. Maybe you change and add a third-party delivery or curbside or takeout. And maybe you don't open for breakfast. You want to look at your model now so that when you're back at full capacity, you're not back into an area that you shouldn't be. So if you're open for breakfast right now and it's not working, move on from breakfast. Now, the number one response from thousands of people that we surveyed on what model they like best right now is ordering online and picking up at the restaurant. So it's the less contact, but it provides the highest quality of food because they're picking it up themselves and bringing it back as fast as they can. So just a few things to think about. But whatever model you do, it's got to be based around the financials. It's got to be based around a budget. You have to be trimming your cost right now. You're in survival mode, and the spending has to be smart. If you're spending money right now, it's on improvements to your business that are going to build sales down the road. So whatever model changes, make sure that you're doing that. Now let's jump into this category of service, and I'm going to hope, and I'm going to warm wishes that everybody has the foundation in place, right? Great leadership, good systems, and staff. Because if you have a great leadership team that trusts each other and works well together and communicates well, then they work on putting in the right systems that help them manage your business. Those systems then help lead your staff. And when your staff has trust in your leadership, it's now a full circle. So that's the critical pieces. But let's jump into the 10 steps to great service. And the first one is no surprise. If we're talking about people, it's got to be the hiring procedures, right? How you onboard them. You've got to be organized with your hiring. It's not just the fact that someone came in to fill out an application. It's that that's the right person for this particular job at this time. I like to go two interviews, 2 different people on 2 different days. And I have to look at bringing back your staff. If you had 37 employees and you went down to 10 or 12, well, there's a lot of good people on your team that you can still bring back. But there's probably a lot of people that caused you heartache and problems before that. You got to make the right decisions. It's ultimately about building the strongest team possible. Now, I'll tell you that usually I'm very in tune of what the unemployment rate is right now, but it's hard to track. And we were at a 3.4%. That was March 1st. Okay, now we're in the 12. It might be a little bit lower right now, but that tells me that there's a lot of people out there that are not working. And you've got to go find these great people. Take the time, take the hiring piece very serious. You need a good training program. If you're going to expect your staff to do anything well and at a high level, you've got to train them. Training is all about comprehension. It's not me sitting here just talking. It's making sure that you comprehend the information that I've passed on to you. You've got to have a great orientation. They've got to be onboarded so that they feel special and that they feel like they're wanted there and they're excited about this. We have a lot of employees that will judge you in the first couple weeks. Typically, they're judging your training program. If they feel like they've been thrown into the deep end without a life jacket, then they're probably going to make the decision in a few weeks to move past you. If you onboard them professionally and properly, and you build their confidence and answer their questions and make them feel comfortable, they're going to stay with you a long time. Now, we've got a lot of new training to do with health and safety. And what I'm finding is that everything we were doing in March and April is still there in theory, but there's a lot of places that are not executing it as well as we did when it first came out. So we're getting tired and we're getting bored and we're trying to move on. It's your role to keep your staff at a heightened sense of awareness. You need some operational systems. If you're going to serve your guests really well, you've got to be organized in the back piece. Because here's what happens is it's all the small little tiny things. And what I mean by that is that these is what complicates the days for the manager. When the staff brings in their problems, typically they can't manage the staff and they get drawn away from what they're supposed to be doing. The staff problems can take like 85% of your manager's time. I like to make sure that my staff is properly informed and they know exactly what they need to do and they're held accountable. My favorite system of all is checklist, action list, responsibilities list. It's every single task that comes into your restaurant goes into one of these 3, so you always know who's doing it, when it's supposed to be done, and when it's going to be finalized. So a checklist, action list, and responsibility, and then a discipline system. My favorite discipline system is sitting around a manager meeting every single week, and we identify some superstar employees, right? We want to talk about the people that are doing it right and how we encourage them and maybe develop them a little bit more, put them into roles that can really work for both parties. But then we flip over to the employees that are not quite getting it. They're not doing it as well. And I lay out a 1 to 5 system. So we're going to identify a couple names, right? We got John, we got Dave, and we got Mike. And then 1 to 5. So we're going to first talk about John. Okay, everybody, for a minute or two, what's going on with John? Well, he's been late. He doesn't want to run food, but he's wonderful when I work with him. Okay, let's assign a number 1 through 5. 1 means we're going to let it go. Okay, all the managers now know, let's keep an eye on John and nothing too crazy. 2 is a verbal conversation. Someone from the management team is going to sit down and have a chit chat with John. 3 is a written warning, 4 is a suspension, and 5 is a termination. When all your managers agree on this form of discipline, that's when you start to come together as a management team, and it's not one-on-one. So discipline systems really go a long way. You have to have strong leadership, and you first need to earn the respect of your staff. If I'm your employee and I don't respect you, I'm going to do the bare minimum of my work. But if I truly respect you and we've got this great working relationship, I'm going to do the extras, the little things, and that's what really goes a long way. Managers, when it comes to service, you have to lead by example. You have to be out pre-bussing some tables and running some food and focused on ticket times. You got to be involved in those details. Find some coachable moments. Every time an employee makes a mistake or there's an opportunity, call them aside, coach them for a minute. I usually have 3, 4, 5 things in my mind that I want to coach specific employees, and I find the right time to do that. And train them on the finer points, how to carry 4 or 5 plates in one trip, how to pre-bus or how to bus a table in one trip. These are the little things that we take for granted, but you as leaders should be teaching and training and coaching all the time. Employee morale. First, you need to understand where you are. Ask yourself right now, where's your employee morale from a scale 1 to 10? 10 is the absolute most favorite restaurant I've ever worked at in my life, and it was just fantastic. 7 says that the leaders are okay, and we'll work with them, but every once in a while there's a little turbulence here, and we got a few bumps to get over. 4 means that you have employees that are out looking for other jobs, and when they find the opportunity, they will leave you with no problem. If your employee morale's at a 2, then you have employees that are benefiting themselves that are harming your business, whether they're giving away free drinks or they're calling in sick to go to the beach or taking a box of burgers in their backpack on the way out. You need to understand where your employee morale is, and you focus on the mood. Watch the smiles. Are people enjoying what they're doing? Is there bickering going on? You first identify it. Then start talking to your staff. And I find that communication is the absolute key here. So when you focus on morale, every once in a while, it's nice to do something nice for your staff. And I'm not saying take them to a baseball game every month or mini putting, but every once in a while, 6 months or a year, it's nice to get your team together. One-on-ones are a great way. Employee evaluations, just say thank you to your staff. It really does go a long way. Then we have some service standards, right? If you're going to try to be great at service, you need to understand what those service standards are. I say you talk at a manager meeting and review all your service standards. How fast do you want your greeting? How fast do you want your drinks delivered? What are your ticket times? What are your check delivery times? How fast do you want your tables bussed after the guests leave? Those are the things that your staff has to know, so you're setting your expectations and then holding them accountable to finalize it. And then you want to identify what the purpose is. Why do you go to a table? Well, I ask my staff all the time, why were you at the table? Well, it's my table. No, what was your purpose? Are you there to create a smile and make them feel comfortable? Maybe that's your greeting. Are you there to provide information and make sure that they're comfortable with all the details of the restaurant? Maybe that's when you take the order. And maybe you're there to just quietly observe while they're eating. So there's a purpose every single time to go to the table. And the accountability is these coaching sessions all the time with your staff to follow up. And a secret shopping program gives you those details to say, here's what the guest was thinking and feeling. Let's see if we can't work a little harder to make this better. You got to be connecting with the guests. They want to see the excitement. They want to know that they're felt welcome. My absolute favorite is 15 seconds goes a long way. I train my staff that the first 15 seconds that you're with a guest, it's nothing to do with the restaurant. Don't talk about today's specials and forget about what drinks we have, but you talk about the logo on their hat or a nice pair of earrings or a nice scarf, and you engage in a conversation with one simple goal. All you're trying to do is make them smile. And if you can get them to smile within the first 15 seconds, you've now broken down this imaginary brick wall between guest and server. And now you trust me. Now you're open to having a great experience. Observe and inquire. Before I approach any table, I'm trying to figure out what my guests are thinking, why they're here. Are they excited? Do they have a baby? Are they at a business meeting? Any information I can collect before I go to a table allows me to customize my service. Awesome greetings, right? It's really tough now if you're wearing face masks. It's the hand gestures that have to say, I'm so excited to see you, because you can't see my smile anymore. But you're there to build relationships and ultimately gain the trust of the customer. Now, communication, when I look at what I feel the two biggest problems in restaurants are nationally, typically it's leadership and it's communication. Well, to me, I put those in one. Good leaders know how to communicate. So I look at communications as 4 different categories. And first, it's the operational communications. Think about this as your shift conversations. Talk about who was late and what food you're out of and what party you have coming in tonight. Managers need to talk all the time about those small details. Use a communication log, a yellow pad of paper sitting in the office. Then you go to directional communication. Once a week, same time, every single week, Tuesday at 2 o'clock, we meet here. And that is to go over typically 4 different categories: operations, financials, marketing, and staff. And those are your big categories that you review, and you're there to solve problems. So the manager meeting says we're going to put operations on pause for an hour so we can talk about how to get better and better. Now, for owners in the audience today, make sure that your communication goes in and out the right way. You're not there. If you're an operating GM, that's different. But if you're a true owner, you're there to help and support your management team. So you don't go directly to operations and you don't go directly to the staff. So the red arrows is where you want to stay away from. Your information comes in and out from the manager meetings. Talk with your GM. Do not over trump your staff or your managers by going around them to figure out certain situations. What you want to do is talk to your managers on the problems that you see and allow them to pass on the information to your staff. Communication is absolutely key. And then we've got the team communications. Sorry, I flipped a little fast there. The team communications is now how you pass on all the details. I don't have a lot of staff meetings, right? They're expensive, but every once in a while, it's great to pull the staff together. Maybe it's easier to do it virtually right now. So the staff meetings, the shift meetings, you got to pass on the small details to the staff all the time. Sales, sales, sales. Not a lot of people think of sales with great service, but I'm here to tell you that selling can absolutely enhance the experience. First thing I say is start off with a marketing committee. Get 4, 5, 6 people that meet once a week or once a month or maybe even once a quarter. And you talk about your marketing, and part of that is internal marketing. And you identify some areas that, or some items that you want to sell. And if you can turn to your service staff and say, these are the 5 entrees you should be talking about all the time, then you've identified the right ones, right? Those are the profitable and the best dishes and the easiest on the kitchen. And then you show them how to sell this. And this is where I find that everybody takes this for granted, that all your service staff knows how to sell. Well, talk about it during a shift meeting. Call a few people up and say, hey, how are you going to sell this meatball appetizer for me? And you discuss it. And when you're talking about sales and talking about service, that's when it starts to get better. As a guest, when a server provides the right instruction or direction or guides me through the menu and maybe identifies a nice bottle of wine to go out with my scallops, then my experience has been enhanced. I'm not concerned about the $29 bottle of wine. I'm concerned with the feeling of when I left of, wow, that was fantastic. So you can sell to enhance the experience, and then they want to come back more and more. And the last piece is you got to make it memorable. That's still why we dine out. Now, right now, a lot of people are doing takeout and delivery and third party, or running into a restaurant based just on food. but this is the long-term piece. You make it memorable. We come to restaurants for these experiences, and you have to understand what your guests love, right? Tell me right now, what do they love about you? Is it your bruschetta sauce? Maybe it's your burger. Maybe it's the ambiance, your location, your staff. Identify what they love about you. Go out and get some customer feedback. Make sure you're on social media, keeping in touch with uh, responses and posts that you're interacting, questionnaires, surveys, comment cards, secret shopping. We can help you with all of those to get you that extra feedback. But just remember that it's the small things that go a long way. I've always found that as a guest, when a server comes over and properly pre-busses my table, I just find that that's very professional. That shows me that they really know what their job is. Personal conversations absolutely go a long way, and simple little gestures. Maybe it's raining and you help somebody out to their car with an umbrella. Little tiny things is what we're looking for. So those are the 10 steps to great service. Now I do have one last slide, but let me just tell you a tiny bit about service with style, secret shopping and consulting. Secret shopping, team training, and coaching is kind of how we break down. And what we have for you today is a simple manual. It's about a 22 page, 10 steps to great service. So what we just talked about, this is going to help get you through how you implement a service plan. Now, if you want this, there's two ways to get it. Either you can go onto our website and schedule a demo. We'll automatically email it to you. Or if you just want a copy of 10 steps to great service, just email me and we'll send it over. And here's what I suggest is that you print the copy, you put it in front of a manager meeting and say, let's talk through this. And it's a workbook, short and simple, and at the end of it, there's going to be clarity on what you're doing for service. So either go to servicewithstyle.com and schedule a demo, or just email me directly and I will send you a copy of 10 steps to great service. So I want to close today with one last slide, and I want you to think about these things because your customers and your vendors and your staff are. This goes to the pandemic and what you're acting on. So obviously we have the safety piece, right? Masks and distancing and hand washing and gloves and cleanings and putting guests to outside tables when possible and limiting our seating, all those type of things for the safety. And then we're looking at no touch, right? Whatever we can limit how we touch, whether it's the condiments or shared items, the payments, the menus, do as many of those as possible. Do you have a good plan? What if one of your employees comes down with COVID-19? What is your plan? You have to think about that. If one of your guests gets it and calls, what is your message to the public? If something happens to your restaurant and you have to close for this, you have to think about the marketing side. And then there's separation, right? Just practice as much good common sense as possible. And a lot of restaurants have separated their staff as much as possible, having their prep come in at night and blocking seats and designating a pickup area, outside meetings, right? Any one-on-one with employees, take them outside. Manager meetings, take them outside. Have some places put in a server station at a table. They've just blocked a small section at the table and the guests hand the dishes there and they take them. It limits your touch. One person in the bathroom at times. Most restaurants are doing virtual manager meetings just to limit that because there's a lot of talking and a lot of engaging. And then the training. And the training is for your customers, whether it's signage, you got to give them some good simple directions and you got to communicate. We're seeing places that have ambassadors. They're just standing outside the front door to engage with the employee or the guest coming in and let them know exactly what's going on. So I hope you enjoyed it. Again, Clarion, thank you for putting on the event. And 10 Steps to Great Service manual is yours if you email me or go onto your website. And in closing, it's the two things. You're trying to get over the virus, which means you have to get the trust of your customers. And we're going to be battling through the economic challenges, which means that you have to show value. Trust and value is how you get through this. So thank you, everyone. I hope you enjoyed it and have a great show. Take care.